All right, we are live, and on today's episode, I interview a singer, songwriter, and daydreamer whose latest album, Nerve, has just recently been released and is now available everywhere, including Spotify and Apple Music. Her album release is this upcoming Saturday, November 23rd, at the West End Cultural Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Welcome to the Winner Circle, Madeleine Roger.
Hello,
And
thanks so much for having me.
hell, yeah, I'm excited to connect with you and learn about your hero's journey to now. But we're going to start with the song, and you're going to kick it off with Wildflowers.
When I first loved you, you said, hold on, I'm not ready. So I went walking through tall grass, hoping we'd lay among wildflowers, among I knew that you loved me when you wouldn't leave my side, and when you brought me a bouquet from the roadside of wildflowers, of wildflowers. I know you're leaving, 'cause you will not meet my eye. I hope you'll think of me whenever you find wildflowers.
Mm, thank you so much. That's so beautiful.
You're so welcome.
Um, what a way to start. What a way to start this conversation. So I had the honor and privilege to hear you first play at the Harvest Moon Festival where I was teaching yoga at and you were performing. One of my friends and former guests on this podcast, Scott Noling, said, took a look at the lineup and I said, who do I have to see? And he says, you have to see Madeleine Roger. She's incredible. And he was right. And we had a chance to have a little conversation. And I just knew you're someone I wanted to have a conversation with on Welcome to the Winner Circle, just to further explore your hero's journey to now. And yeah, I'm excited to find out how like this has become, how you became a singer-songwriter, how you've produced two albums now, Cottonwood in 2018, and then your latest album, Nerve, which has just been released. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So as I mentioned to pre-hitting record here, like these conversations are really meant to uplift, inspire, and empower everyone tuning in just to move forward with greater faith and belief in themselves on their hero's journey. They're pursuing their passion, they're listening to the heart, they're going for their must. And the first question sets us up really positively, and that is, Madeline, what do you love about your personal world right now?
There's so much that I love about what I'm
getting to experience and be around right now. Um, I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind is just I feel like I get to experience so many people who are really dreaming and who are not only living in this sort of dream state of being an artist and reaching into the great beyond and digging deeper and deeper into themselves to find something that they want to express somehow. Um, but then I also just feel like artistic communities and the people who come to appreciate and be on the audience side of that, it's really some of the most beautiful groups of people of all time. Not to
Mm,
be hyperbolic, but it's really special to get to experience people making art and all of the people who really want to come and be involved on the other
mm.
side. Because I think
This,
so many listeners and so many audience members are artists themselves. So it just gets to be
yeah.
a great exchange of ideas.
And you help each other grow. Like when we surround ourselves with positive communities and dreamers, as you mentioned, like you piggyback off each other's successes and you all grow together and just
Mhm.
it's really magical.
Yeah, there's just no greater feeling than getting together in a big group of humans to appreciate art. Well, an example is how we met at Harvest Moon Festival. Like, I loved so much in that moment how not only was it this big pancake breakfast for the community of Clearwater, Manitoba, but it was also this amazing place for a bunch of musicians to share their talents. And then there was, of course, all of the people who bring all of this energy and light and adventure to the campground. And yeah, we got to meet in this sort of chaotic hubbub of a pancake breakfast in a community hall.
Yeah, who and you're playing with your friends too, which makes it also even special as well.
Hmm.
You had a couple of your friends up there with you, and you got to showcase their talents.
Yeah, I love that about the art form of music in particular. It feels like it's so collaborative. I know there are a lot of art forms that are really collaborative, but something about the folk music scene, the foundations of the folk music world are just so based around sharing with one another and also making music together and being creative together. And I think everybody that has experienced that before knows how great it feels to just make music with people that you love. And so I
Hmm.
love being able to bring my friends and my artistic idols who are often the same, one and the same. It's really nice to be able to bring them all together.
Hmm. I feel like it's a form of play as well, like letting out like your inner child, just
Mm,
creating, exploring with one another.
totally. Yeah, I think about that often, how this path is so much about experimentation and play, and how part of that is about allowing ourselves to kind of sink into this feeling of we don't know what's going to happen, and letting that be part of what is driving the the excitement about what's going to happen next. And I just love it when things are a little bit up in the air, and maybe I'm lucky that I have fallen into a career or that I've chosen this path in this career that is deeply up in the air all the time, but it means that there's just so much room for there's so much room for exploring your curiosity and seeing what happens.
Incredible. So a question I ask every guest at the start of the conversation pertains to their personal mission. So what guides them in all that they do? So like what is the why of your
Hmm.
music? What are you trying to bring forth and share with your music? How would you say that how would you identify your mission with your music?
Hmm. What a great question. What comes to mind is that my answer for that is different for different parts of my artistic practice.
Okay.
So when I'm in my writing state, when I'm digging around and trying to write a song or trying to capture some of this feeling that's bubbling up inside of me, I don't know that there's actually any purpose.
Huh.
I I don't like to write, or I try not to write with having any concept of what the future perceptions of that thing will be. And so for me, it's really that moment is about trying to catch the truest version of whatever the thing is that's bubbling up. Sometimes it feels like it bubbles up inside of me, but sometimes it feels like it's floating around or it's like whizzing by and I have to catch it somehow. I don't fully understand where these songs come from. Um, but I've worked really hard to keep my artistic practice separate from the idea of sharing them with people. And I am really dedicated. I've dedicated my artistic practice to making songs that I like for myself.
Hmm.
And then once I feel like I've found this kernel of something and I've made this song and I'm excited about, usually I know that feeling because I want to play it all the time. I've written something and I just keep coming back to the guitar and I keep wanting to play it over and over and over and I'm really excited to memorize it because we write these songs and I don't know them at first. I have to really learn them. And when I've found a song that I'm excited to keep playing, I usually then start to think about, oh, is this one that I'm going to want to share with other people?
Hmm.
So once I decide to share songs with people, whether that's through recording or live performance, I think I'm most interested in um, having there be this connected human experience. So I want to be able to, I don't want to feel like I'm necessarily putting on a show. I want to feel like I'm sharing something that I've learned about myself and hoping that the people who are hearing it are going to hear something of themselves in those songs.
Hmm.
I was just having this conversation with some dear friends who are also artists. I think that um, I'm more interested in making art that moves rather than wows. And I
Yeah.
don't think that there's a right or a wrong way to do any of it, but I love the idea, maybe because I'm trying to write music that moves myself, and therefore I hope that when I share it with other people that it moves them in some way also.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then the continuation of that is that at the end of the day, I have to love what I'm presenting. And I know within myself when I have a feeling of feeling really steady that I'm sharing something that is truly my expression. And I know the feeling when I'm sharing something where I feel like I have other people's perceptions in mind.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's this really, I love it. It's like this, in a way, it's almost like this never-ending meditation or or I haven't actually spoken about it in this terms publicly very much, but in a way for me it is a bit of a spiritual practice of connecting with this entity that I don't really understand, which is the creative force and creative energy, and then finding a place to share that in a room with other people. And that's when it feels really magical to me, when I can like fully let
Hmm.
my guard down and let people into that.
Yeah, that creative energy, I feel we could all tap into it in different ways, but it's coming beyond us. It's like not coming from Derek or Madeline. It's coming from something beyond us, and it's speaking to your soul, and it's being transmuted through you. I feel like that's my experience with the muse.
Yeah, totally. And then I think part of the practice, maybe I don't know if you feel this way too, but with anything that we try to master, we start to accumulate more tools and more practice at how to capture that and how to recognize when we're making something that's hitting the mark or not. So
Hmm.
like an example is I feel like now for lyric writing, I really am so familiar with the feeling that a line isn't quite right because I've
Yeah.
experienced that feeling about a lyrical line so many times. And now I know to trust that, oh, I'm having that feeling again about this line. Now I get to do the work of going in and fixing it or finding the line that it's actually supposed to be. And that
Hmm.
now I just let that process take as long as it needs to. Because sometimes I used to say, oh, it's close enough. But now I'm like, oh, I've recognized this feeling. And now I'm going to spend
Yeah.
2 weeks if I need to, 2 months, half a year, who knows? Who knows how long it'll take to find the right
Uh,
line. But I love that part of the process. I love like
hmm.
finding the I love finding the version that it was always meant to be, because that's how it
This,
feels when you get the right line.
oh yeah, it's a wonderful feeling when you kind of surprise yourself and like, oh, that's it, and you don't know where it came from, but like you recognize, okay, that's
Totally.
something special.
And doesn't it come in the weirdest places sometimes? Like sometimes I'll be riding a bike or I'll be going for, actually it's often motion. I'll be going for a run or I'll be sitting on a bus and then all of a sudden I wasn't actively thinking about that thing, but then some some mystical force just sends a little paper airplane with the right words written on it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the best.
Mhm. That's beautiful. So you talked about sharing. Has it always been easy for you to share, or is that something you've learned on how to share? Because I feel like that's something that blocks a lot of artists of all means, is them feeling afraid to share, or not worthy to share, or not wanting to take up space and share.
Hmm.
What's your relationship with sharing look like, and how has that evolved?
Yeah, that's been a journey. That's been a huge journey. Uh, when I started writing songs, I didn't ever intend to share them with anybody. I was actually a theater artist at the time. I was getting a degree in theater and film at the University of Winnipeg, and I had started secretly writing songs, which in a way I had been doing already for a decade. In my mind, I was just so afraid of not being quote unquote good at it, and so I would never write anything down. And I think it was because my whole life I've always had this reverence for songwriting. And therefore, as an adult, when I realized I wanted to do it on my own, I found it really difficult to accept that I wasn't going to be what I thought was quote unquote good at it to begin with. So it took me a while to be comfortable with the idea of even just trying to start writing to begin with. And then for my first maybe year and a half of songwriting, which I did quite obsessively when I started, like it really took over my life and my mental space to the point where I wasn't really paying attention in university. I was just like writing lyrics down. Sorry, professors, if you're hearing this. And yeah, I it changed when I decided just to start sharing them with friends. And I wonder if that's actually just the perfect way to go about it. Like I really staged it and I went gently at first so that I could get used to the feeling because there's so much anticipation when you've made something for the first time and you're like, I think I like this, but I don't really know if I do, and now I'm gonna let someone else hear it and I don't really want to watch their facial reactions or because there's fear involved in being um, there can be fear involved in being in sharing something that's vulnerable like that.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I found that there were just lots of other songwriters that also wanted to get together and have song swaps. I was like, oh, this is great. I just get together with other people who are sharing their art and we all get to sort of try these things out for the first time. And it wasn't long after that that I decided to go to some open mics and step up one more notch from there. And then all the fears that I had about what might go wrong in those open mics didn't come to be. And as it turns out, then there were people in the audience who liked some of the songs and they wanted to know if they were recordings. And then I was like, okay, well, geez, I don't have any recordings. I guess I should make some recordings now. So I feel in a way like the process of sharing, it grew. It grew because I just kept following the next part of it. And once I got comfortable with one degree of sharing the art, then it didn't feel as insurmountable to try the next thing that would have felt impossible if I had started there. Like if I went from writing songs straight to trying to host my own show at a venue, that would have been really terrifying. But
Hmm.
so many there's so many systems within our communities that we have for sharing what we're making with people. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like you're like inoculating yourself to like uncom being uncomfortable, and like just like small steps, and like the more we step into our discomfort,
Mm,
the easier it becomes, but it's not like going from stage A to stage Z, like you go to A,
mm,
B, C, you progressively step further and further outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Whoa, I love that way of putting it. And you know what I think is really fascinating is that now what's happened is I'm actually actively seeking out that feeling.
Mm,
It was maybe 2 years ago. What year was it? It was 2022. I decided that 2022 was going to be the year where I actively chose doing things that scared me.
yeah,
Because I had seen in my past, in my artistic life and in my personal life and in my professional artistic career, that every time that I took a risk, which only feels like a risk because there's fear involved, every time I stepped towards the thing that scared me, it actually like opened up this whole other world that I hadn't
yeah,
accessed before because I was keeping myself safe from my perceptions of what might go wrong. And more often than not, nothing goes wrong and you just try something new and it's amazing. And yeah. So to the now it has become just such an important part of my life of recognizing when I'm feeling uncomfortable about something and then determining whether that is a fear of the unknown or if it's a actual, if it's like an intuitive self-protection moment.
So, how do you feel your relationship with fear has evolved, and what does that look like for you today?
Hmm. Now, now I think I'm looking for the things now I see it as like this fun challenge almost. Not in every aspect of my life, but there's things where I'm like, okay, this thing is scary. Why does it feel scary? What do I got to do to go do that thing and see if the fear is founded or not? I guess I have a specific recent example.
Yeah.
This it's so funny and it seems quite insignificant, but it was a hurdle for me, which was in this other project that I sing with, the Fretless. I love this project, and it was my first time being hired as a vocalist where I wasn't also playing a guitar. So I was just
Uh,
singing. So all of a sudden you have this situation where you're like, wow, I don't have a guitar in my hands. What do I do with my hands?
yeah.
And so the first year of touring with them, I had the microphone on the stand and I found a way to be very comfortable doing that. And then about a year in of touring with them, I was like, guys, I want to do it. This scares me. I want to take that microphone off the microphone stand and hold it.
Yeah.
It's such a small movement, but it completely changes your body language on stage. And I had built it up to be this big thing because in my mind it was like only pop artists use a handheld microphone. It's so
Yeah.
silly. But then we tried it in a sound check and I realized, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can actually face all of the other musicians on the stage really easily now because I'm not stuck to the position on the stage where the microphone stand is. And it took me a couple shows to not feel like an imposter and to feel really weird because I had spent a decade singing into a microphone on a microphone stand. But now
hmm
I love it and I'm like, oh, I want to always do shows where I'm not, where I don't have to be as stationary because it's just, yeah, it's really freeing.
hmm Personally, like another way, like I step into discomfort is in completely different elements. So like, so for like, it doesn't have to be as you like your examples are, or from the music world, but
Mm.
you could also step inside your fear, like doing something completely new. Like for example, for me, it was dance.
Mm.
Like going from like a yoga teacher, like a martial arts teacher, like being like an expert in those fields, to just being a complete beginner at something new, and like just like the fear like of that and just not being good and just recognizing, okay, it's okay. And then that's helped me step into fear in all areas of life, you know. So it doesn't the stepping into the uncomfortable doesn't have to be in your specific niche.
Mm.
I also find there's benefits in stepping into your fear in other areas of discomfort.
Mhm. Totally. Do you find you also notice the threads between your other, if you have an area of expertise and you're trying something that you think is completely new, where you have this moment of like, oh, I actually know how to learn this kind of skill. Like I imagine if you're speaking of, did you say martial arts?
Yeah, I'm a jujitsu black belt. Yeah, so martial arts.
Amazing.
Um, but yeah, I do, and it's
To
just
go
like
from that
connecting
to
with
dance, it's movement.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
you know,
connecting with the flow state. It's like getting out of your mind and just allowing your body to move and being okay with making a mistake. And when you make a mistake, like don't think about, oh, I made that mistake. Just keep on moving
hmm,
forward in the now.
hmm, I love that. It's so intoxicating to find more ways of existing in the world. And I find, I don't know if you feel this way too, but that when you try something new, it actually can sometimes help the things that you thought that you knew lots about. It helps them grow too, because all of a sudden you're seeing something from a new angle.
Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely.
I love that about doing things that are, yeah, we're going towards fear.
Yeah, things that
Yeah.
are scary from the outside, but
Yeah.
when you step in, you just recognize, okay,
Yeah.
it's it's all like you just find your center, and then from your center, all is well.
Hmm.
So, these conversations are called Welcome to the Winner Circle. And for me, going for your win means embracing the process over the destination, fully disappearing in the present, um, and not worrying about the outcome. So often in today's society, it's like when I get like this job, when I get this relationship, when I get this like recording deal, when I win this award, like I'll be happy. And then you get there, and then it's like, okay, maybe a momentary happy, then it's now what? Because we're missing the sweetness of the song, and that's like the process, that's the journey. What does winning mean to you, and what does it look like for you in your life today?
It's funny how many of these questions it just comes back to songs for me. To me, winning looks like being in love with songwriting. It's it's so in a way it's so simple, and I don't want anything that I do to ever take that feeling away. I had a period in my life where I was getting really distracted by things that I thought I was supposed to be doing for my career, or like you say, kind of shooting for these other milestones and having that be the markers of whether or not I was able to be proud of myself. And
Hmm.
I've I've become so I'm so fiercely protective of that feeling of loving songwriting because I want that with me for the rest of my life. And so everything that happens when I'm working on creative projects with my art, I want nothing more than to feel so grounded in the song and to to feel like it's okay. It's genuinely okay if nobody likes it. It's genuinely okay if if this project doesn't turn into this whatever big thing that a thing could turn into. Of course, a person still has to pay their bills and make a living and have a pace of life that sustains our needs, and that's certainly a part of it. And I think that those things can get tangled quite easily in this career, and you choose to make a living off of your art. But yeah, winning is. I feel so lucky that I get to share my music with people, and that they're willing to listen and that they're willing to support this project. To me, that is such an incredible blessing, and I am hopeful that that can continue to ripple out.
Hmm. So how did like you mentioned you started songwriting when you were at the University of Winnipeg and like your theater and film program, and that's when you started songwriting. But when did your relationship with music begin? Like how, like what's the origin story of you or like singer-songwriter? Or was it there? Was it there in that in those theater classes, and then you just started writing and decided, oh, I want to pick up, like, did you know how to play a musical instrument then? Like, what's the origin story?
Well, I grew up around music. So my dad is a musician and recording engineer. He runs and operates Paintbox recording studio here in Winnipeg. And when I was a kid, he worked at the CBC. He was a producer of a show. And then when I was 5 years old, he maybe even younger, he opened private ear recording studio. So I was always deeply around it my whole life. And then my on my other side of the family, like my aunt was a piano player. There was just tons of music around the house at all times. And then a bunch of my cousins sang. So we used to all get together and sing songs. We'd have these family sing songs out at the lake, campfire jams that I was always singing with. My dad taught me how to harmonize for vocals when I was probably 10 or something. I have a really
Okay.
vivid memory actually of going for a walk with him. And he was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to sing the melody, and you're going to try to sing other notes that are not the melody that work
Uh-huh.
under that work over the chord. So, yeah. And then I was in choirs all through junior high and high school, and I was in musical theater because I loved singing. And then the musical theater is what led to straight theater because I didn't feel very connected to the narratives in musical theater. I loved singing and I loved the art form of staged theater, but I didn't necessarily love those two things together. So it kind of started splitting when I was about 17, and I started doing more just drama and singing in choirs. And that's when I started learning how to play the guitar. Um, yeah. And then it kind of happened really quickly. Like I only knew three or four chords on the guitar until I was 20. And then something just clicked for me, and I was like, I absolutely must learn how to play this instrument. I must start singing songs. And I took a year off of university and did a very stereotypical thing and locked myself away in a cabin in the woods in the winter and like wrote 20 songs in my first month of songwriting and tried to figure out how to play bar chords and whatever else it was. Um, yeah. So music was always there, and I was always a fairly obsessive music listener. I always had just a big record collection and would always spend any money I had on CDs at the Winnipeg Folk Festival music store when it still existed. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I used to sit there
So,
and write out lyrics for songs that I loved because I was trying to understand. This was long before I decided to ever try to write a song. I would like listen to my favorite records, and I would sit there and I wouldn't Google it. I would sit there and listen to the lines on repeat and write them out line by line to try to understand how these lines were coming together and what the story really was and how it connected to the vocal melody.
hmm So who were your musical influences back then, and who are they now?
When I was starting to really dig into just sort of studying songwriters, I was listening a lot to, well, there's two in particular that come to mind, Sarah Harmer and Kathleen Edwards, both Canadian singer-songwriters, and a lifelong love of Lucinda Williams. She will be she's one of my desert island record artists. Um, and Ron Sexsmith would be another. Several Canadians plus Lucinda Williams. Um, yeah, I really love writers where their lyrics are at the core, where the musicality is always in support of the lyrics. Yeah.
hmm
And then now
Um,
some of my
yeah.
heroes are Anais Mitchell, based out of Vermont, and Aoife O'Donovan. I believe she's in Florida, both American singer-songwriters that I think are just truly exceptionally brilliant in every way.
What's brilliant about them?
They they manage to they manage to make songs that are so incredibly universal, but they're painted with just such incredible metaphor and imagery where there's this whole world that opens up while you're listening to the song, and then it reminds you so deeply about something in your own existence. It's
Mhm,
perfect. To me, that's all you could ever hope for and ask out of
mhm,
art.
They really make you feel.
Oh yeah, big time. And the music is really amazing. Like in one way there's part of songwriting that's poetry, and then there's this other part that's the musicality of everything. And when those worlds come together, where the feeling of the music totally makes you sink even further into the feeling of the lyrics, I just think it's pure magic.
Mhm. So, who else would you like throughout your journey? I'm sure you've had many mentors and helpers and allies on your path that really have helped you on your journey. Who are those individuals? You could just name a few. And what were the major takeaways you learned from them that you've embodied into who you are now?
Hmm, cool question. I'm thinking locally here in Manitoba, there's a couple folks that are maybe like one decade older than me who really were super supportive during my early writing and really gave me a bit of a roadmap to work from. And those people were Kara Luft and Carrie Latimer,
Uh,
both phenomenal songwriters and singers and artists here in Winnipeg that were just very supportive and like kind of cheerleading me and offering advice in the early days of everything. And also actually Greg Lescue, what's Greg Lescue's? Greg Lescue used to be in his project was called Swing Sonique and he was for a while in the Guess Who. I think he's I don't know what generation he's in, but he was a big supporter early on. When I was really young, he hired me to sing backing vocals on some of his recordings, but then also just offered tons of his time and energy to listening to all of my early songs and like giving critique, but with so much excitement. He was so excited about what I was doing that it really made me feel like I could keep digging into this practice and learn more about it and that there might be something in it that other people could take. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So those are some big helpers. And um, for you nowadays, are you kind of taking on that mentor role and helping upcoming artists, or are you not
Hmm.
yet there?
I like to think so, but I wonder if I'm not I don't know if I'm the right person to know whether or not that is true. Like I like to think I know that there are some artists in maybe one decade younger than me that I've been spending time with and helping them in certain ways. I don't know if it's helpful for them or if they feel like they're being mentored or if we're peers or if I'm being mentored by them. Because
I'm
I
sure it
think,
works both ways.
yeah, like I think it often goes in all of those directions at once.
Hmm. So, what advice would you have to like not even has to be a musician, but just a fellow hero on that path that are feeling a call in their heart, like to pursue that passion, what like to quit that job and to like go after their dream of becoming a singer-songwriter or to travel the world or to go to that yoga teacher training or just
Mhm.
to like listen to that must in their heart versus like the pull of the should, like the shoulds from society, parents, school. Like you should get a 9 to 5 job. Like you should get your 401k. Like you should like play it safe. And that's keeping them like stuck, paralyzed at that crossroads where
Mhm.
there's a longing in their heart to just kind of jump into that unknown and just go for it. What advice would you have for someone kind of at that crossroads?
I think that anything that we choose in life, there's going to be a big element of it that is hard.
Mm,
And I chose the hard path of being a self-employed artist because it felt less hard than having to do something for hours and hours and hours every day that I didn't care about.
mm,
So I want to say all of this followed on the backs of it's hard. It's not easy. It's not an easy path. It's a lot of work. You have to be constantly checking in with yourself to make sure that you're just moving your artistic practice and your career and all of the business side of things forward in a way that feels still true to yourself. But I so deeply believe that there's room for more artists in the world always, and that if I could point to one single thing that is the most important, it is building your artistic community of artists peer to peer. I have seen this time and time and time again that the biggest boosts that we get, not only for our art, but also for our careers and our livelihoods and our business, come from other artists. Because it's actually this big web of people who love this art form, who are all engaged in all kinds of different pockets of the career and the business, if we want to go
Yeah.
there. So, yeah, you can try to impress certain people who seem like they have um, power in certain arenas that you might want to be in, but ultimately, artists are hiring other artists, and artists are supporting other artists, and shows are being put together by groups of artists. And so many of the people who run festivals and conferences and who book for venues, they're artists. So the more you start to connect with this web of other people who adore the same thing that you adore, the more these other worlds of presenting your art publicly open up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do that
Mm.
first. Do that first.
Yeah.
The same thing of like
Connect.
a song swap. Yeah, connect with your peers. Because then you start to
The
see, you can start to connect with the people who are a couple steps ahead of you too.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have people whose expertise and experience you can draw from.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a story of to share about like a challenge you've had to overcome on your journey, like a challenge that at the time just seemed so like not good. It's just so insurmountable that you were able to overcome and the takeaways you learned from that challenge.
Hmm. There's so many. Um, oh, like a specific challenge. I think actually the biggest thing for me is constantly being on the brink of burnout.
Okay.
Like I've actually had to learn how to not overdo things because my temptation is to try to say yes to everything all at once.
Yeah.
So it's kind of building a pace of life that is slow enough that leaves room for the artistic practice to still flourish. And I definitely do not always execute this in the way that I'm hoping to, because it's so hard to predict sometimes how much time and energy is going to go into a particular project. But I
Yeah.
think constantly learning to take time with decisions and take time with the planning of things and the creation and the release of projects, um, to have a bit more gentleness in life. Otherwise, I have reached the brink of burnout so many times that it it starts to kind of compromise the ability to enjoy making the art. And then that comes back down to that foundational thing that you asked earlier of what is winning. And for me, winning is loving songwriting. So, yeah.
Yeah. So boundaries, being able to say no is very important.
Mhm.
Um, what are some other self-care fundamentals that you use to refill your cup?
Kayaking. Uh, yeah, I really love kayaking. I love kayaking. I like just going out and doing anything that moves my body because there's so much of this work where I'm sort of wrapped around a guitar, or I'm huddled in the back of a tour van, or I'm on another airplane, and it's not great to be curled up like a gremlin at all times, as it turns out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think just getting out in the air and kayaking or going for a run or going for a walk. Or even the other day in Toronto, I just spent some time lying down in a pile of leaves with my dear friend Michael, and we just looked up at this canopy of the maple that was turning red and just
Hmm.
lay there and giggled, and it was perfect.
Hmm. I'm curious to know, is journaling a part of your self-care practice? And like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I have a lot of journal. I've got a lot of journals. I have I've got a I've got a whole system of journals. I for a long time have done morning pages. Do you know about
Yeah.
morning pages? Yeah.
Yeah, stream of consciousness.
I haven't been very on top of that in the last half year because it's just been, I have prioritized sleep over morning pages, but I like to dump the thoughts on the page, but then I also have my songwriting journals, which is where whenever I have thoughts that filter through that seem like lyrical lines or ideas, or if I've noticed something or captured something, I put it down in there. Those two journals kind of get blurred sometimes
Hmm.
And then I have another journal where I put more finished songs in them so that I can kind of edit them. I do a lot on paper. I don't do much writing digitally. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. These conversations, like I mentioned, is welcome to the winner circle. So let's take a moment to just celebrate some of your wins. What are some of your wins or accomplishments are you most proud that you've accomplished?
Well, I love this new record that I made that I have released recently called Nerve. I got to go and work with one of my absolute heroes, who's this artist by the name of Josh Kaufman. He's a phenomenal producer, guitar player, and we, for that record, I really wanted to sink further into this feeling of abandoning perfection and perfectionism.
Uh,
So in the studio, we made the decision to not record anything to a click track. So where there's like a little thing in your ear going click, 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 so it's all perfectly, the tempo is all perfectly mapped out for the whole song, which is what
yeah,
happens in a lot of recordings now. So we decided not to record to a click track, and we decided to record my acoustic guitar and vocals together, along with Josh playing another instrument of his choice. And what that did is it meant that we were bound to using full takes, and we were bound to taking any kind of quote unquote mistakes and keeping them. So we were
yeah.
looking instead for these full, a feeling in a song that we got right, rather than looking for sort of this technical precision. And we ended up making the whole record in 4 days. Um, because we were able to just be completely intuitive and instinctual and trust the gut feeling. The first time that we got a take, we were like, wow, that one felt really good. We were often able to just stop there or maybe just do one more just to double check that we had got it right. And I'm so proud of the record because I feel like it has this life and honesty in it that I really, really wanted for these songs, because the songs are so personal and raw, um, that it would have been such a shame to try to lacquer over that with perfection.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So is there a theme of your album Nerve, or is it just kind of a snapshot of your life in the past 6 years since your last album, Cottonwood, which you released in 2018?
There's definitely a theme. There's a lot of it's a lot of songs about love and loss and heartbreak. I went through a very important breakup the year before we made the record and ended up writing a lot of songs about that, and um, experienced this actually return of joy in my life from being able to center on my own self that I had realized I was neglecting. And I think that kind of comes out in how the album sounds. It sounds, to me, it sounds sort of uplifting, but then the lyrical content has this, there's an element of sorrow in it.
Yeah.
But I like that we were able to tie those two together because I think that that is what life is.
Hmm. What have you learned from your heartbreak, that you could offer someone going through a difficult time now?
Hmm. I learned just to trust myself and to let myself really feel the feelings instead of trying to run from them. This record was the first time that I really wrote excruciatingly personally, where the
Uh,
songs were so personal, or where I was choosing to share those, because I had written very personal songs in the past, but I sort of shelved them and thought these are not for other people. But
yeah.
for this one, I really trusted that I could that I it was okay if I was going to feel really sad, and it was, or really hopeful, or this curiosity about the future. And I think sinking into that feeling of loss let me realize what was important in my life and what I wanted moving forward. And yeah, the
Hmm.
artistic practice all kind of tied into that. Writing songs just kept pointing me over and over and over and over to this idea of I'm going to be okay. and I still have a lot of love for the world.
Hmm. And how would you say this current album differs from your first album, Cottonwood? How have you evolved since that first album 6 years ago?
I think it's far more mature, which I would hope after 6 more years of living.
Yeah.
Um, it's far more comfortable with vulnerability. It's uh, it doesn't pretend to, like I said, it doesn't pretend to be perfect. Not that I think Cottonwood did, but I just think there's this feeling of ease and relaxed delivery in Nerve that I hadn't
Hmm.
learned yet when I made Cottonwood. I still love Cottonwood. I listened to it for the first time in years about a year ago just to I listened to my own discography just to gain some perspective over where I had come. And I
Yeah.
was really pleased that I had made some choices in Cottonwood that I would never make now because I knew I was still so much learning and I'm still so much learning now. Um, but yeah, Cottonwood feels a bit more like I was trying many directions all at the same time because I didn't really
Mm.
know yet exactly where I wanted to be. And in a way, I think that lends that album to having some really interesting variety that is cool in its own way.
Yeah.
And it was intentional. I wanted there to be a bunch of different feelings and a bunch of different lyrical styles all packed in the same album. But now I want more for a full album to have a feeling of its own. And I feel like we
Hmm.
nailed that with this one.
Beautiful. And yeah, it just came out, so it's still new, but are you looking ahead to the next album after Nerve, or is that, well, that's a long ways away?
In some ways, it's a long ways away, but in others, it's not because I've already written it. It's written. I just, this is the pacing thing again. Like, I know there's a finite number of hours in every day, and I really want to make sure that I'm elevating this current album that I've just released
Yeah.
without sort of dropping it and immediately going to make the next thing that feels really exciting to me. So I'm going to keep writing songs, and I have the next album fully written, and actually half of the one after that. But I'm going to take my time with it because I would like to also have moments of chill in my life.
Hmm. Um, an author, like, it seems you do not have a problem with this, but one of my favorite authors, Stephen Pressfield, he writes about the creative process and he describes a thing called resistance. And
Mm.
it's that negative force in the world that keeps creatives from fulfilling their dreams.
Mm.
Um, so it's like the thing that keeps them in bed or from not getting on that guitar or not writing those lyrics. It's like that procrastination.
Yeah,
Do you experience resistance, and what are your strategies at overcoming that? Um,
all the time. I experience that all the time. I don't know any artist who doesn't on the larger scale. I go through periods where I'm deeply in tune and feel prolific and feel like I'm prioritizing the art and connected to my creative energy, but I also go through deep periods where it feels very elusive. Um, I honestly think rest is so important. Such an important antidote, and then being really intentional about making time for it. Because if we wait for the muse to strike, but we haven't left any time for the muse to come knocking, then
uh,
we're not gonna be able to put pen to paper. So for me, when I'm doing my best version of tending to my creative self, I leave
yeah.
time for it. And often that's either in the morning or the night where I just build in a couple hours of every day for either practice or for writing. Uh, like when my schedule is a bit more open, I tend to do this thing where I write every morning. And um, if I land on an idea that I'm really excited about, I'm allowed to drop everything else for the rest of the day, just in the pursuit of that thing. It's not always possible because sometimes there's just deadlines and other stuff we have to stay on top of. But in an ideal world, that's how I would exist all the time.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that. That's a great advice on how to overcome that resistance that I guess it affects us all. And I feel
Hmm.
what it is, it's something in us that is trying to keep us safe from the unknown. And by doing that thing, by like sitting with the muse, like we're gonna open doors that otherwise wouldn't have been there. And there's a
Hmm.
fear associated with that.
Yeah, totally.
So
Yeah.
scheduling those dates,
Yeah,
those
it's not a
creative
very
dates.
sexy answer, but it's just, I think it's true. I also think sometimes being honest with ourselves, like I went once a 2-year period where I barely wrote,
Uh-huh.
and I kept telling myself that I just wasn't inspired.
Uh-huh.
And part of that was true because I was going through a really hard time, but part of it was that I was not just doing the work.
Uh-huh.
And I think I think if we want to be always coming at our artistic practice with this overflowing warmth and joy, there's just days where we don't have access to that. So the other thing I would say is like sometimes I try to now just work with it if I'm feeling grumpy and I'm grumpy that I haven't written a song in a long time. Well, that can be a powerful creative force. So now I'm like, I guess I have to play guitar for half an hour. And I just work with that. And I'm like grumpy and practicing something, but still making sure I'm doing it. And more often than not, just the act of sitting down to do the thing, even if there was this deep resistance to begin with, once I get started, the like peaceful return comes to me and
Mhm.
little ideas start sparking.
Hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for that. So much wisdom shared. And it's towards the end of this interview, and towards the end of every interview, I ask a final few questions to every guest. And so we're at that point. The first one's a pretty big one. These are all pretty big final questions. But through all the highs and lows that is this hero's journey, what do you feel, Madeline, has been the greatest life lesson you've learned on your path thus far that you feel called in this moment to share with us?
Ah, um, I this is probably quite a cliche answer, but I think it is so important to have fun with it
Uh,
sometimes because it's so possible to take ourselves seriously. And so often I am called to just remembering that it's just songs. And it's yes, it's my dream and it's the most important thing to me, but it's also just like wow, we get to have this human playground of our own lives and I want to make sure that I'm having fun doing it.
hmm. That's so important. Maybe this is one of an answer to this next question too. In 3 words, how would you describe the experience you're having on this earth? So just 3 words that you would use to describe your current experience in the reality you are enjoying.
Um, Fun, weird, and expansive.
Fun, weird, and expansive. Okay, we've talked about fun. Let's talk about the word weird. Um,
Well, it just seems like there's so many unknowable things in this life, and where we imagine things are going to go one way, or we imagine we're going to respond in one way, or but the more I spend time existing, I just feel like so much is chaos, and I'm here for it. I love it. Um, but we can't predict what's going to happen. We can try to put ourselves in the right spot and we can try to practice the things that we want to spend our time getting better at, and things are still gonna get kooky sometimes.
yeah, I really love the word weird. Like, and did you know like it has an origin in the word destiny and having the power to control destiny.
Whoa, I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's a cool
Hmm.
little fact about the word weird. Is yeah, it's the origin is German and it has to do with destiny and it
Hmm.
originally meant weird originally meant having the power to control one's destiny.
Wow. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the other word used expansive. So why did you choose expansive? to
I
describe the reality
I think
you are in.
because so many moments feel like they open into something else.
Mhm.
And if we're willing to peek into our own unknowns, we can discover so much in there.
Uh, incredible. So last question. We played around with time. We've examined your past. We've examined your present. Let's go into the future. Let's time travel. Let's time travel, and we'll
Okay.
bring ourselves along an 85-year-old Madeline Rogers,
I
who
made it.
is, yeah, you made it to 85. Who is that woman? Who is that woman? Where are you? Who you're surrounded by? What is the legacy you've left here in your 85 years? And what are the predominant feelings? This is the most important. What are the predominant feelings in your being?
Wow. I'm going to work my way backwards. I hope that the predominant feeling in my being is serenity and that I'm surrounded by my dear friends and family. Um, and I hope that I am looking back on a lifetime of gentle adventures, which I feel like I'm already on a good track record of that so far. And I hope that that continues. Um,
Mhm,
and I hope that I look back on myself as having always been curious
mhm.
and open to learning new things and to being challenged. Um, yeah, and I hope that I will have written just so many songs.
So I
I
just
hope
invite
I'm
you
still
just
writing. I hope when I'm 85, I hope I'm still writing songs. I hope I still think I have something to say, either just for myself or for other people.
Mhm, mhm. Incredible. That sounds amazing. I just invite you to close your eyes and just to really like tap in and tune in, attune to that 85-year-old woman who's rooted in deep serenity. She's surrounded by friends and family. She's lived a lifetime of gentle adventure. She's always stayed curious, always open to learning. She's still writing and still learning and still has something to say. So just really feel into that 85-year-old Madeline. And then I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back to the present. And that 85-year-old woman, that 85-year-old elder, she sends you a message. What does she whisper in your ear?
Just keep going.
Keep going. Absolutely. Keep going. Keep going. It's happening. Thank you so much, Madeline. It's been a real honor and a privilege to get to know you better and hear your story. And I know everyone listening will find some sort of gem in here that will help them on their journey. For people wanting to connect with you, they could find you on your website, madelineroger.com, or you're also on Instagram at madelineroger. And on both of those, they'll show you, it has links to where they could get tickets for your upcoming tour to promote your latest album, Nerve, which is available everywhere. And yeah, your album release will be here in Winnipeg on Saturday, November 23rd, which I'm very excited to attend and listen to you live in person. Any last closing words, and then we'll finish with the song.
No, I feel like you've asked such incredible questions that have dug deeper than I was expecting today. So thank you for that.
Hmm. Beautiful, and yeah, we'd be blessed to hear a song to exit this conversation.
Sure, I can do that. What am I gonna do? Just have to retune my guitar real quickly. I'm gonna do another one off of the new record. This song is called "You Don't Think About Me." This was a real exercise in digging. I wrote it from my former partner's perspective. So, yeah, I'll leave it at
Very good.
that.
Yeah.
had to pull over on the side of the highway while the semis rolled by. Fear of crashing since the collision took your friend. I held you standing in the ditch, waiting for you to stop shaking. We picked brown-eyed Susans, I took over driving. It's hard to believe you don't think about me anymore. You don't think about me anymore. Yeah, you don't think about me anymore. We were lying under the stars in the summer, had the whole night just to love each other. I kissed you slowly, waited till I knew you were ready. Then you cried, is this what I've been missing? I've never felt anything like that before. I pulled leaves from your hair while you were drifting to sleep. It's hard to believe you don't think about me anymore. You don't think about me anymore. Yeah, you don't think about me anymore. You were hiding, wouldn't look yourself in the mirror. Had a long list of what you'd change if you could. A different face, a different sense of humor. I stood with you year by year. I couldn't let you disappear. I pointed out every part of you I couldn't live without. It's hard to believe you don't think about me anymore. You don't think about me anymore. Yeah, you don't think about me anymore. You don't think about me anymore. Yeah, you don't think about me anymore. You don't think about me anymore.
Wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. Madeline Roger, new album out now, Nerve on Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere. To close every episode, digital fist bump.
Awesome.
Boom.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was really great chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to your concert, your album release on the upcoming Saturday, November 23rd at the West End Cultural Center. And for people all across Canada, you'll be BC all the way across. So check her out live.
Thanks so much.
Talk to you later.